Okay, so welcome back to the development blueprint, and this is episode 4. I want to say episode 4. So today we are talking about recovery, because there is no hypertrophy if you're not recovering from your sessions. Now, you can make your sessions as optimal, your nutrition as optimal as it can be, but at the end of the day, if you're not recovering and you're not fulfilling your requirements for adequate recovery, sleep, nutrition, all those things, stress management, you're never going to grow. So training, as we've talked about, provides the stress, which is the stimulus. And then recovery is the adaptation, so the hypertrophy, the actual cross-sectional muscle increase, which is what we want, which is big fucking arms, which is what we want. So for every increase in strength, muscle and performance comes from what your body does after the workout, after your sessions. Not doing it, the quality of recovery determines how much of your training stimulus is actually causing adaptation. Okay, so it's a very overlooked topic in the industry. It's becoming more forefront over the last months and years, but it is still very much under talked about. So what is the purpose of today's lecture? So recovery isn't passive. It is a physiological need and must, and it can be optimized. It can be made better. So don't just think, yeah, I'm just recovering. No, you can do things on a day-to-day to optimize your recovery and make your sessions worthwhile. Because we try it in the gym. Yeah, we try it in the gym, 5-6 training sessions a week. Your nutrition's meticulous. You're eating 5-6 meals a day, 3,500, 4,000, 5,000 calories a day. Hydration is nailed. Supplementation is nailed. You can also optimize your recovery. Wow, I know, who would have thought? So yeah, in this lecture, understanding biological recovery mechanisms. So what actually is recovery? Learn how to sleep, you learn your nutrition, and how stress affects adaptation, because stress is the biggest killer. Well, and chronic undersleeping, but that's obvious. But stress and cortisol in itself as a hormone is a killer of adaptation. So when I'm saying this word adaptation, that is hypertrophy, or whatever given adaptation you want out of training. 9 times out of 10 is hypertrophy. And how to build systems that treat recovery as a performance variable, because it is a performance variable. It is something that you can avidly try and work on and make better to get better results, which not many people do. Only the big guys do, because they're big, because they recover well. So yeah, you'll learn the mechanisms behind recovery, how to control them, how to optimize them, and why consistent restoration is a prerequisite for sustainable muscle growth. So what does that mean? Why recovery is so important? Because it is very, very important. So recovery is adaptation. Adaptation occurs when you are recovering. You do not get bigger muscles by training in the gym acutely. Okay, that it does the opposite. It breaks down muscle fibers when you're in the gym. You are not growing when you are training. You are causing a stimulus. Like it says, training is stimulus, but recovery is then the response to that stimulus. So you need your recovery to be stellar. Without full recovery, adaptation is incomplete. You are just going to get some soreness, going to get some joint pain, you're going to be stressed, you're going to be tired, you're going to be fatigued, and you're not going to grow because you're not recovering. So performance stagnation doesn't always come from a over workload failure. So it doesn't always come from going a bit too far, overstretching yourself volume-wise, load-wise. It can also, 9 times out of 10, be a recovery bottleneck. You're just under-recovering. Like, so whenever you're getting to a stagnant point, a sticking point in your training, whether that's your body weight's no longer going up, you're no longer progressing your lifts in the gym, you're not getting stronger, you're not visibly seeing change in your physique, it's not always you're doing too much. It's sometimes, look at your recovery. Is it as good as it can be? More than likely, no, it cannot. So yeah, recovery isn't just rest. It's when your muscles repair, it's when your glycogen stores are restored, and it's when you neurologically recalibrate yourself. So your CNS also gets fatigued, which is completely separate to muscular local fatigue. Your nervous system can also only take so much strain before it starts to say, okay, let's slow the fuck down. So there's things you can do on your day-to-day to optimize that. So, and if recovery lags, adaptation just stops. It says no, it says no to growing anymore, because like I said, you are growing when you are recovering. So when stress stalls or fatigue accumulates, the problem usually isn't your training, which is the common sort of things. Oh yeah, just deload. No, you don't need that. You just need to look at your recovery. Is it as good as it can be? The answer is more than likely no. It's your recovery capacity, not your training. So the recovery hierarchy. So these are the things that we can get on top of, manage in order to make our recovery as good as it can be. So first of all, most athletes, you know, when you think of recovery, okay, the kind of nuanced things come into mind. Massage guns, massages, cryotherapy, not water therapy, because we know that's bullshit. Yeah, that actually blunts adaptation unless you're doing it super far away from training and maybe in a devolume week, but you want local inflammation after your session. So this is a whole other topic that has been debunked now. It's not very good for hypertrophy reasons unless it is stretched very far away from training. But if you're training even 3 on 1 off, 2 on 1 off, even on those off days, you are still having some local inflammation on those days that is promoting hypertrophy and adaptation. So you don't want to blunt that. So let's get out to the cold baths. It's not nice anyway, and it's not hardcore. Okay, hardcore is recovering well. So yeah, sleep is the top. Okay, sleep is the top. Then we have your nutrition. Are you nutritionally sound in what you need and what your body needs in the current phase you are in? Stress regulation, so cortisol management. Are you actually just chilling out? Are you chronically stressed all day, whether that's your work, whether that's your social life, whether that's your relationship? It's not a good environment to be in. And we'll go into why that isn't a good environment to be in a bit later down the line. Activity management. So are you avidly having active rest days? Are you staying active on your rest days, promoting circulation, promoting those metabolites to move around the local muscles that need repairing, promoting blood flow, promoting nutrients into the muscles that need it? Or are you sitting on your ass and doing 500 steps in a day and eating like a slob? Which one's going to recover more? It's not really hard. When you actually think about it, it's not really hard. Then the bottom of the list, recovery tools. So then you have your deep tissue massages, your cryotherapy. I'll label it cryotherapy. I'm not talking about cold plunges. Actual cryotherapy is shown to be pretty beneficial. And yeah, sleep is non-negotiable. Nutrition fuels the repair process, as we know. Stress control allows the body to stay in an anabolic state, in an anabolic environment, because cortisol is directly catabolic. Catabolic means we don't want that. Okay, we don't want it to be in a catabolic state ever. So that's why as soon as you finish our training, okay, fast carbs, because you're catabolic right then. You are in a catabolic state and you need to get back into that anabolic state as quickly as possible. So yeah, only after all of those things are stable and are tracked and are measured and are optimized, then you can do things like your saunas, your cold cryotherapies, your massages, because those things help, but they make a marginal difference in comparison to your sleep, your nutrition, your stress management, and your activity, okay? So, sleep architecture. This is the biggest one. Sleep is huge. I drill this into all of my clients. Sleep is the most anabolic thing ever for a multitude of reasons, okay? So, deep sleep is physical restoration. So, that is where your body is in its most recoverable state. That's when you are at total rest. It's the only time throughout the day that you are ever at total rest, not doing anything. You're allowing your heart rate to come down. You're allowing everything to repair itself. So people who are hardcore, putting on their stories, yeah, I'm up at 3 a.m, went to sleep at 11. It's not hardcore. If hardcore is being chronically underslept and under-recovered, then yeah, it is hardcore. But why would you want that? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't think it would make sense to you either. So yeah, deep sleep specifically drives muscle tissue repair and growth hormone release. So overnight, your body will have natural sort of growth hormone pulses. So growth hormone is what is released into your bloodstream, which then converts to IGF, which is basically your growing hormone, which is what we want. Bodybuilders obviously are taking estrogenic growth hormone, which then you time that with your sleep, and then it just gives you that boost overnight of the IGF-1 pulse. So IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor, basically just tells your body, okay, fucking grow. That's what we want. We want that signaling, okay? And if you're not getting that in that deep sleep, in that parasympathetic state, then you're just not going to get that, and you're not going to be making the most gains that you can. So then we have REM sleep, neural and hormonal recovery, and REM sleep restores the nervous system and your learning capacity. So over the day, over your training week, your nervous system is taking a beating. Yeah, it's taking a beating. You're constantly as you should be, training hard and within close proximity to failure, that means using heavy loads, which your nervous system is also working, not quite as hard as the local muscle, but it is working very, very hard to tell your body, okay, turn this muscle on, turn this muscle on, turn this muscle on, control this muscle, control this joint. You know, it's doing a lot of work. If you actually break down what's working in a deadlift, your nervous system is up there. It's like, okay, I have to have all of these vertebrae turned on, keeping them nice and tight. And it's just that axial loading of big movers as well, which means compression of the spine. That takes it out to you. So you need to recover your nervous system as well as just the local musculature, okay? So missing sleep, it doesn't just create fatigue, it literally changes your hormonal environment. You are no longer getting those growth hormone pulses, which is not converting to IGF-1, which is not signaling your muscles to grow, so you're missing out on gains, basically. Okay, and consistent timing and duration matter more than just total hours as well. So yeah, we all know 7 to 9 hours a night is the optimal. I like the higher end of that just because it's nice, and fixed wake times as well are very, very critical and important. So you should be waking up at the same time every day, roughly give or take half an hour or so. Okay, why? Because your body learns that. It learns that. I preface to clients, you shouldn't need an alarm in the morning. Okay, if you need an alarm to consistently wake up at a designated time, then your sleep needs work, because your body should naturally be waking up at a given time every single day. If it's not, you're either going to bed too late or there is something else wrong. Your sleeping environment is out of whack. You need to get your body drilled into, okay, we're waking up at 7:30 every day. That's my time, 7 to 7:30. I'll naturally rise at that time, going to bed 10:30, 11 o'clock, getting 8 and a bit hours. That's what works for me. And I don't need an alarm in the morning. I'm up, I'm rested, I wake up and I don't feel super groggy. I don't feel like I haven't slept. I wake up well rested. Yeah, some days better than others, especially after a hard training week. You always will feel a little bit sluggish, okay, as you come into the end of a hard training block or the end of a phase. But you should feel majoritively well rested when you're waking up, okay? Poor sleep, also just, you're not getting that optimal hormonal environment. Testosterone production comes down, GH production definitely comes down, and your cortisol, which is your stress hormone, which we've already discussed, is extremely catabolic, that goes up. So we don't want any of those things to happen. So basically, sleep, okay? So, onto the nutrition recovery factors. So protein synthesis peaks post-training, okay? So when you are getting straight back into that fed state post-training, that's why we have a nice fast digesting protein source post-training, a really fast digesting carbohydrate source post-training. As we see in the second statement, glycogen replenishment enables the next session performance. So when you are depleted of these stores, you are catabolic. We want to spend as little time in a catabolic state as possible on the pursuit of muscle growth, because why wouldn't you? Like, if you actually break it down, it makes total sense. But a lot of people just think to overcomplicate it. You basically just need to eat when you've done something. When you've done something, you've exerted energy, you've depleted your muscle stores, your glycogen stores, and you've also promoted a protein synthesis effect by resistance training. So what do you need after you train? You need to replenish those carbohydrate stores, and you need to make the most of that muscle protein synthesis spike, okay? So yeah, and hydration also basically allows your muscles to function and allows transport of nutrients, okay? And when hydration is thrown around, it's not just water, it's your electrolyte balance, okay? Your sodium, potassium, calcium, they all help muscles contract, and they give the best peak contraction that you can, which means in turn, stronger in the gym, better sessions, more productive stimulus, which then in turn needs better recovery, because you're training harder, you're training better, training more accurate, recruiting more fibers at a closer intensity to failure. You need to recover that bit more, okay? And recovery rate scales with nutrient availability, okay? So the more food that you are on, so obviously your recovery will be better in the off season when you're eating a bit more food, when you're in a nice calorie surplus, because you have more nutrients to pass around, to get transported, to feed into those current processes that need feeding, okay? So obviously that's why when you're in the off season, yeah, you can do a bit more in the gym, you can do a bit more volume, you know? You not ease off your recovery, but you can do more, okay? Whereas if you're in a deficit, a chronic deficit over time, you might want to come back down to sort of minimum recoverable volume. Then, well, at that time, when you're in the off season, your minimum recoverable volume, but then when you go into a dieting phase, that may turn into your maximum recoverable volume. Okay, it depends on the nutrient availability that you have. So yeah, training hard on no fuel, it's just breaking down more tissue than you can afford. Okay, so you do need to watch that, especially when you're going into a deficit. Bring your volume down, because you simply just can't handle the high intensity training volumes when you haven't got the nutrients to transport and repair and feed into the necessary processes that occur to cause growth and repair. So, on to nervous system recovery. Now, we've already talked about this. When you are training, you are not just fatiguing the local muscle groups, you're fatiguing your whole body. Okay, especially if you're having a lot of compound movements or multi-joint movements, especially axial loading movements, squats, deadlifts. What else is axial loading? I can't think off the top of my head if there's anything else. Squats and deadlifts, pretty much. Squats and hip hinges. Okay, squat patterns and hip hinges. So any squat pattern where you're weight bearing here, or any deadlift, it's just whenever there is load that is compressing your spine and your whole spine has to stay erect to maintain that lift. That is what we call axial loading. That is the most fatiguing on the CNS. So you can only do so much of that per week before your CNS is like, no, I tap out. That's fucking it, basically. And when that does happen, you know about it, okay? Because you will run into those things of the under recovery metrics of you waking up and you're still tired. You feel like you haven't slept because your body's just like, okay, give me a fucking break. We're not doing this anymore. Okay, so CNS fatigue basically gives slower signal transmission and weaker contractions, okay? Because we said how important the CNS role is in training. If that is under-recovered, then you're just not going to be able to function and move through space with your body as well as you usually would, okay? Your CNS is in control of everything that your body does when you're training, okay? A chest press, yes, that is your pec muscle, but what's telling your pec muscle to, okay, let's contract? It's your CNS. Okay, what's telling all your shoulder stabilizer muscles in a chest fly or a chest press to stabilize? Your CNS. So it's going through the ringer. If you're training hard and you're training well, it's going through the ringer, so you need to recover that as well as the local muscles. Okay, so rest days and lower intensity sessions help restore that CNS output. It's just nice sometimes to give your CNS a break. Okay, and your HRV and resting heart rate are pretty good indicators of when you are chronically fatigued. Okay, so when it is maybe time for a deload, or maybe when it's okay time to look at your recovery and optimize it to the best that you can. Okay, so if your resting heart rate is consistently trending upwards, you know, you're not really getting as parasympathetic as you could be. Parasympathetic basically means your digest and rest nervous system breakdown. You have your sympathetic and your parasympathetic. Your sympathetic is basically when you're sort of fight or flight mode, okay? You're alert, you're switched on, everything's on, it's ready to go. You can only spend so much time there, okay? Because that is fatiguing to your CNS. Whereas your parasympathetic is when you're laying down in bed, everything's drowsy, you know, you're switching off to sleep, you're digesting as optimally as you can, and you're resting as optimally as you can. Okay, so when those things are high, your HRV and your resting heart rate are elevated, then they are pretty reliable indicators that you're a bit chronically fatigued. So then it's time to either, okay, deload, okay, or look at your recovery and optimize it the best of you can. Okay, so training stress is not just the muscle, but the central nervous system as well. Like I said, when CNS fatigue accumulates, coordination and force output drop. Okay, so your training will stagnate and it will even regress. If you are really, really chronically fatigued, it will regress just because your body cannot function as optimally as it can. Your contractions are not as good, okay? Lighter days or complete rest are required occasionally to restore that neural drive and that optimum CNS levels of functioning, okay? Objective markers like HRV and walking heart rate or waking heart rate show when your system needs a reset. Okay, so when any of those things are flagging up, that's probably, okay, let's kind of slow down, or let's look into this a bit more, okay? So your hormonal and stress balance, this is massive, and this is something a lot of people don't understand, okay? Those other things, yeah, they are pretty much common knowledge, okay? But this is a major killer, and it's a lot of underlying in a lot of people, just from day-to-day life, you know, and they feel like that's normal. Okay, so chronic stress elevates cortisol, which is your stress hormone, which completely butts heads with MPS, so muscle protein synthesis. Okay, when your cortisol is high, you're much more water retentive as well, so it affects how you look, especially if you're in a bodybuilding preparation. You need to make sure cortisol is low in order to bring your best look. Okay, and it also just stops you from fucking growing. Okay, it stops you from growing. Like we said, if your cortisol is high overnight, you're limiting your IGF-1 pulses, your growth hormone pulses, and you're overall bringing your testosterone levels down overnight, which is not what we want. And when that is high over a long period of time, it literally shows in blood work and in blood panels, your testosterone will be on a gradual decrease, which is not what we want if our goal is to gain muscle to an optimum level. Okay, so parasympathetic activation, breathing, relaxation, low intensity cardio, all that enhances your recovery. Okay, it brings your stress levels down, and just do things that you enjoy. Okay, do things that you enjoy and things that chill you out. Go build some Lego, play some Xbox, pull yourself out of what stresses you. Okay, look at your life, look at your circle. Realize if you are chronically stressed, because if you are, that is not good. It's not good for not only your physical health, it's not good for your mental health as well, which is not talked about enough. Okay, so excessive life stress keeps the body in fight or flight mode, so that sympathetic nervous system. Like I said, we can only spend so much time in there before it's like, okay, fuck this, I'm done. Elevating cortisol and halting recovery. Okay, it activates that shift you into your parasympathetic dominance, slow breathing, walking, slow light intensity cardio, just doing things that you find chill you out. Okay, build some Lego, play some Xbox, journal, do something, listen to some whales, listen to the rain sounds, just things like that. It is important, if your goal is maximum hypertrophy, to spend time in that state, especially pre-bed. Okay, so you don't want to do anything that's going to be stressing you out too much before you go to sleep. Okay, because like I said, you need to be in that parasympathetic state in order to have the most optimal sleep. So now, active recovery. Now, a rest day is a rest day. Okay, a rest day is a rest day. If you are designated a rest day, that is a rest from high intensity resistance training. Okay, that does not mean you sit on your ass all day and do nothing, because that is not taking your recovery as optimally as you can. Okay, low intensity movement increases blood flow, like we first said, and it clears out those metabolites. Okay, for example, a 20 to 30 minute walk on a treadmill, just get your 10k steps in. Keep your step goal in on a rest day, because you need movement, you need blood flow, you need to be moving around. Especially if you are in a hefty surplus, you need to be hungry as well. So that's a doubler. Go keep your step goal on a rest day, because you need to be hungry. I actually had this conversation with a client last week, I'm pretty sure. He was just like, okay, yeah, I'm just not as hungry on a rest day. Obviously his rest day food is reduced based on his training day food, but he was just like, yeah, I'm just really struggling to get the food in. This guy's not on a lot of food. So I looked into it a bit more. I was like, what are you doing on a rest day? What does your rest day consist of? And he was like, to be honest, nothing. And I was like, you still have a step goal. Are you getting that? And he's like, nah, not really. It's just like, I just rest and I chill. I was like, yes, that's good. That's all good and well, but you still need to be moving. You need that blood flow, okay? Keeps joints mobile and prevents stiffness as well. So basically, just move around. Even on a rest day, you are resting from resistance training, okay? You are not resting from movement. You need movement even on rest days, okay? Unless you are totally cooked, then in that case, actually lay on the settee all day. So active recovery sessions increase circulation and nutrient transport while reducing stiffness as well. So it keeps your joints mobile, keeps you nice and lubricated. That's what we want, okay? Low intensity movement, walking, cycling, swimming can drastically enhance recovery without interfering with muscle repair, okay? Because it's low impact, low intensity. You're not burning through glycogen stores there, okay? You don't want to do anything that's intense. Just chill, light movement. That's what we want, okay? So now, recovery tools. If you remember, these were absolute bottom of the list, okay? These are the fads. Some of them work, some of them have some warrant, some of them put you into that parasympathetic state, you know? So they're not, if they are subjectively useless, if you enjoy doing them, and if they chill you out, then they are no longer useless, because they're helping you get into that parasympathetic state, okay? So cold exposure, not plunge, as I said, plunges are stupid, don't do those. Massage, compression boots, they're useful, yes they are, but they are not mandatory, okay? Prioritize those ones up in the hierarchy, your sleep, your nutrition, active recovery, before these things, okay? Prioritize the basics before interventions like these. And data does not equal recovery, okay? Biological restoration is still required. So you still need those biological markers to tell you that you are getting recovered, okay? So tools can help, but they do not replace the basic fundamentals of your sleep, your nutrition, your active recovery, your hydration, all of those things, okay? Massage, cryotherapy, cold exposure, they provide temporary relief at that time, but overall, they will not fix chronic under recovery if you're not nailing already your fundamentals, okay? So in use case, I would use these occasionally if your fundamentals are already in place, if you're already on top of absolutely every other variable, then yeah, use them, they're cool, and they help chill you out, okay? If you like jumping on a foam roller for half an hour on a rest day, you know, it's helping you chill out, it's moving some blood around, arguably it's breaking down some of that top layer tissue, is it? But if it chills you out, then it has a place, you know. So prioritize the fundamentals over adding these fads, these interventions, okay? They have a place, but the place is very much down the bottom of the tier list of recovery tools, okay? So recognizing under recovery, how do we know if we're chronically under recovered? Okay, so there's a couple of things we can look at. So these are kind of like biological red lights, okay? They're warning lights. Not so much red lights, because red's like, whoa, we're done. Warning lights, we'll call them amber lights, okay? So when recovery falls behind, you're no longer meeting your recovery demands. Performance, mood, sleep, they will all decline, okay? Plateau in strength, elevated rest and heart rate, like we said, some mood disturbance, you find yourself becoming a little bit more agitated, a little bit easier to piss off. That's a chronic state of under recovery. Persistent soreness, you know, your second rotation on a muscle group in a training week is coming back around and you're still a bit sore when you usually wouldn't have been, and you're not massively stronger, you're not adding in loads of training volume, but you're getting sorer. That is when your recovery is sort of outweighing, no, your stimulus, is outweighing your recovery. Okay, so you need to look at that and you need to fix it. Address these before adding more workload. Okay, it baffles me the amount of times I see people will just, yeah, okay, I'm sore going into this session, but I still did it. It's like, and I did an extra set. It's like, bro, you're not intelligent. You're not intelligent, and you're not fucking growing off of that, which is more so to the point. Okay, you want to grow, you are not growing by doing that. Okay, you are in fact just putting yourself in a pit, and the deeper and deeper you get into that pit, the longer and longer you're going to have to spend trying to get back out, by fixing your recovery, by deloading from training, even taking full weeks off at a time from training if you are absolutely trashed, which does happen, okay? So reduce load, eat more, and re-establish your sleep rhythm before pushing again, okay? If you're having any of these things sort of flare up, don't try and just work through it. Don't try and add training volume. Don't try and do anything which is causing more stress. Just ease off, okay? Get your sleep back in a better place. Maybe up your food, you know, in a dieting phase. Obviously, you're in a deficit. You can't be adding food in. So in that sense, we would look at just pulling back on training, you know, pulling back on output, pulling back on expenditure. And you find yourself becoming a lot fresher just off of that, okay, while still maintaining your deficit. Yeah, re-establish your sleep rhythm before pushing again, okay? All of these need to be addressed properly before pushing through them, because that's the hardcore thing to do. It's not hardcore, it's just a lack of intelligence, okay? So practical application. Now, I like putting one of these slides in for everything, just because, yeah, it's all well and cool saying all of this, but how do you actually apply that to your own training, to your own physique development? So sleep 7 to 9 hours with the same schedule daily. That is the important part as well, okay? Wake up at the same time, go to bed at roughly the same time, get the same routine. You know, like I said, when your sleep is absolutely perfect, your body will wake up, okay? You won't need an alarm, which when you're in that rhythm, you feel so good. You just function throughout the day so well, and when you're in there, you won't want to leave, okay? So I really recommend everyone to try and get their sleep to that point, okay? So how can we make your sleep as best as it can be? Dark room, blackout blinds, cold room, weighted blanket, little things like that. Pregnancy pillow, that was one I used to use. Blue light blockers before bed, if you can't put your phone down, which I know a lot of people can't, me included, so blue light blockers will suffice. But just screen time down before bed in general. Cut water off 45 minutes to an hour before bed. You know, you don't want to be getting up to piss in the middle of the night. All things like that add up, okay? And just get to fucking bed. Just go to bed early. It's not hard. You're no longer a fucking child. Go to bed. It's that easy, okay? It's like, do you want to stay up like a fucking 13-year-old boy, or do you want to actually grow muscle? See what I mean? Nutrition-wise, consistent calories, okay? High protein, obviously. Keep that MPS spiking high, 3 to 4 hours between servings, and sufficient carbohydrates. Now, obviously, that is dependent on whether you're in a deficit or a surplus. Carbohydrates will obviously be higher versus lower, but stay on top of it, okay? Stay on top of what you need at that current time, okay? Hydration, 4 to 5 litres per day, plus actual hydration, electrolyte balance, okay? Sodium, potassium, calcium. Take your hydration sup, okay? Like I've said, hydration levels massively impact how well your muscles are going to be contracting. So, well, calcium as itself is like the primary sort of mineral that is used in a muscular contraction. So take your hydration sup, basically. Okay, salt your food and take your hydration sup. Stress control, breathing, meditation, journaling, whichever chills you out. As I say here, basically whatever chills you the fuck out. Okay, personally, I'm not a meditator per se. Wouldn't really be a fan of that. But for me, it's just like, maybe I'll play some Xbox in the evening. I'll stop, you know, working at like 8:30 p.m. Aim to go to bed at like 10, just mentally switch off, get yourself in that parasympathetic state. Then by the time bedtime comes around, you're almost halfway there, okay? Nice dark room, cold room, blackout blinds, heavy blanket, you're ready to go to bed, okay? And active rest, 1 to 2 sessions weekly, okay? Just a normal rest day, but make your normal rest day active, okay? Light intensity movement, stick to your step goal, okay? Do some light cardio, swim if you want to swim. You know, just do something that you enjoy, that gets you out and gets you moving around, lubricating your joints and keeping you from stiffening up like a fucking board, okay? So recovery systems should be structured as optimally as your training program. If your training program is the most perfect training program on earth, which doesn't exist, by the way, because everyone's training program perfect for them will be so different. But if yours is set up as good as it can be for you, your recovery program should be set up that way as well. Okay, otherwise you're leaving gains on the table. So yeah, set sleep targets, maintain steady nutrition, hydrate systematically. Okay, do it as if it's the most important thing on the planet, because it literally is, in the sense of obviously hypertrophy. Get your water tracker app. I have one of these, 1.5 litre bottle. I know I got to drink 3 to 4 of those a day. Sound, there we are. There's my hydration done. I have a hydration sup in the morning. I have a hydration sup when I train. I salt my food. That's my hydration done. And I've done that for so long, so systematically, I don't think about it anymore. It just builds into your daily life and your daily routine. The same as your sleep schedule, okay? You do it so often, your body knows it. You know, it knows when you're releasing that GH pulse. It knows when to convert it into IGF. It knows when to fucking grow. That's what we want. Okay, it knows when to wake up, and it knows when you are fully rested, because that is what we are chasing. That is what we want. You need to be fully recovered. Okay, so yeah, and schedule low intensity activity to promote restoration. Treat recovery as its own performance metric. Okay, I get all my clients to rate their recovery on a day-to-day basis. Every day in their daily check-in, body weight, recovery, muscle soreness. If any of those are flagging up, we look into it straight away, because it's a fucking killer. Okay, even stress. Again, the track stress as well, because like I said, cortisol is catabolic and we don't want it, okay? Now, common errors in optimizing recovery. So, like I said before, adding weight instead of fixing recovery. So adding more training, it's just like, yeah, bro, I'm super sore. I'm gonna go, my fucking chest is killing me. I trained push 3 days ago. My chest is still sore. I got chest again today. Yeah, I'm fucking getting huge. No, you're not. You're staying small and you're gonna get injured and you're gonna get even more down into that fucking pit of under recovery. And then you're going to be trying to clamber the walls, trying to get back out. Just stay in the fucking pit, mate. Stay in the pit. That's where the hardcore people are. Just stay in the fucking pit, okay? Under-eating relative to workload. Now, this is relative, obviously, to your caloric intake, what you need for your goal at that current time. Like I said, under-eating relative to workload in the sense of a dieting phase or even a preparation, you need obviously to stay in that deficit, so you manipulate the other variables. Okay, when you are getting chronically fatigued in a dieting phase, you bring training volume down for a week. Okay, you freshen back up, you bring steps down for a week, you bring cardio down for a week, rather than adding some more food in. Okay, obviously, yeah, you can have high days, but that's more indicative of your physique, okay, rather than your actual total fatigue. Okay, so that's something you want to look at. And ignoring sleep as a limiting factor, okay? Like, sleep is huge. I cannot stress that enough. I'm pretty sure I've conveyed that message pretty effectively in this lecture. Sleep, if you're not sleeping, you're a fucking child and you're going to stay small, basically. And the overuse of stimulants masking fatigue. If you are trashed going into sessions, if you are no longer getting excited to go and train, something is wrong, okay? We do this for fun at the end of the day. You are going to the gym for fun. You like training. If you are getting to that point where it's like, oh, I really don't want to go to the gym today, you are under-recovered 9 times out of 10, okay? Either all that, or you're just a massive pussy, but 9 times out of 10, you're under-recovered, okay? And overuse of stimulants just to mask it, okay? Like, you have to pop fucking 3 Monsters and 600 mg of caffeine before you go to the gym just to get yourself up for the gym. That's a problem. You shouldn't have to do that. And not only then are you having to do that, but that will then impact your sleep, okay? Caffeine's half-life is 6 to 8 hours, depending on how much you take and how big you are. You don't want that in your system when you're trying to go to sleep. What caffeine does as a molecule, it just erects your fucking CNS to be in that sympathetic state, okay? That fight or flight mode. It wakes you up. Basically, it just binds to the adenosine receptor. Your adenosine receptor just basically says, okay, yeah, let's go into this sympathetic state now. Parasympathetic, sorry. Let's get tired, let's get drowsy. Caffeine stops that happening, okay? So that's why you get that alertness. You don't want that when you're trying to go to fucking sleep, okay? So don't drink caffeine after 2 p.m, basically. And yeah, that's pretty much every common error I could initially think of when I was writing this. I don't think there would be any more. Yeah, smashing the sort of fads rather than looking at the variables. That's a common error. Yeah, I'm super fucked. My back's still fucked, and I got to train pull tomorrow. Let me do half hour on a foam roller, and that'll fix me up. No, it won't, okay? No, it will not. Most people fail recovery, okay, because they mask fatigue with caffeine or just push through it like it's like some big man thing to do. It's not, okay? They are going to stay small, okay? Or they're not going to get as big as they can be, okay? Recovery debt will just compound and compound and compound until performance eventually just says, okay, no, that's it. Prevention is a lot simpler than correction, okay? So analyze these things as and when they happen and prevent them from getting worse before they eventually put you in that fucking recovery debt pit and you have to correct everything to get yourself out of there, okay? So, to summarize, growth happens after training when you're recovering, not when you are in the gym, okay? When you're in the gym, you are literally breaking down a muscle, okay? You're not growing when you're in the gym. Sleep and nutrition dominate the recovery equation, okay? I would even go to say more so sleep, because you can still recover in a calorie deficit even when you're at a deficit in your caloric intake in a dieting phase. You will still get recovered even by sleeping well, as long as your training volume and output is managed carefully, which it should be. Your CNS, hormones and stress dictate your readiness, so you need to be in that good anabolic state. Your CNS needs to be recovered as well, like we said, how important your CNS is for muscular contraction and making your body move as fluid and as efficiently as it can in order to get the best stimulus out of exercises, which then in turn allows for the biggest amount of hypertrophy to occur, obviously combined with well recovered. And sustainable progress needs an efficient recovery system. Okay, so you need that schedule of sleep, you need to track your fatigue metrics, you need to get on top of this shit before it bites you in the ass and puts you in a hole, because it will. So training is the signal, like we said, training is the signal, it's the stimulus. Recovery then builds the result, so the result being hypertrophy, bigger muscles, getting fucking jacked, okay? If you sleep well, you will get jacked. It's that easy. By controlling sleep, nutrition and stress, you convert your first effort, which is the gym, which is the training, which is the stimulus, into an actual tangible amount of physique development, okay? You can give all the stimulus you want, but if you're not recovering, you're not adapting, you're not growing, you're not getting any physique development out of that. Sustainable growth comes from respecting recovery as if it is any other training measure. If all people respected recovery and their recovery metrics as well as they did track their weights and reps in the gym, then everyone would be so much bigger, okay? But unfortunately, they don't, okay? So yeah, basically, respect your recovery, and then that is the key to growing. So yeah, that is this lecture. Basically, as a whole, stimulate, recover, grow, and go to fucking bed because you're not a 13-year-old boy, okay? So thank you for watching. I will see you in the next lecture. I'm unsure what topic it's going to be on yet. I may well do exercise selection. What makes an exercise good and what makes an exercise bad? Because they are real things. So if ever someone tells you there is no such thing as a bad exercise, they're fucking wrong, because there is. Depending on your body and your biomechanics and the strength curve and etc, etc, etc. Okay, so yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.